Hey guys, good morning. This is Kyle, aka Vulcan Wolverine. I just wanted to make a short video today. I hope everybody is hanging in there. This stuff is so rough. I just hope everybody's hanging in there. We just got to do our best to get the truth out right now. I wanted to, and I'm getting tortured really severely. I hope everybody's like getting through it. Using things like Dave Case CD. We're getting closer. We're getting closer to October. To the actual the UN has declared that targeting is going on, but they're going to speak in more detail in September and October. So we just got to get there. We are getting somewhere. I think we're getting somewhere. I wanted to show y'all something. It's like good and bad news. Like what's going on in the world. As somebody who's targeted with integrated directed energy weapon systems and integrated neuro weapon systems, I'm surveilled everywhere I go. Like you guys who are targeted, you're surveilled everywhere you go. We're gang stalked by DHS fusion centers, InfraGard by federal agencies, and then there's these community policing programs, right? I wanted to show y'all something. There's all this chaos, right, from the CV pandemic, and then the chaos from increased crime due to defunding the police not showing up to work, attack on the police, right? And it's I've talked about this in live streams. I think it's targeted individuals we want to be like, police are involved in gang stalking. They're surveilling. They may not know exactly what they're doing. They may not know that they're surveilling a person who's being microwaved to death and hit with V2K, hit with neuro weapons, but they are definitely participating. So yeah, go ahead and defund them. But I just wanted to explain how it's a much more complicated situation with all the chaos going on and increased crime. DHS is going to move in, like all these agencies, they're going to work on certain protocols, and at the top, like at the top of the pyramidal structure, they're pulling strings using BLM and Antifa, defunding the police. Against this side, DHS fusion centers calling on like governors to sign more documents, to request more federal aid to assist with the dwindling police force, right? So it's this create chaos, and then the evil is going up the field. Evil is going up the field on these massive agendas to globalize, right? But first to more federalize policing in our cities, and the increased crime rates and everything are going to go a long way to not only having more people gang stalked, more innocent people gang stalked, right? Because local governors, hey, we need help from DHS to come in and do more civil policing. So it gives them this justification to come in and go after criminals and surveil criminals all the time, 24 hours a day. They'll get hooked in to this system, but then it gives them this justification. In all the chaos, they can start targeting and gang stalking more innocent people, and then at that level, right, they're gang stalking with DHS fusion centers, InfraGard, community policing, the sheriff's department, and everything like that. Other organizations, right, basically civil. Let's see what he calls it. I want to show you guys this interview from Fox News. But doing that, then more people get surveilled, and then it gives these agencies and contractors who are actually doing the directed energy weapons torture, directed energy surveillance, right? Because they're using through-the-wall radar, remote neural monitoring, so surveilling people's brains and things like that, where this layer is just like, okay, we're DHS and we're moving in there. Some of them at the top may know about it, but it gives the agencies and the contractors this justification to target more people. So this increased crime, defunding, abolishing the police, it's going to open up our countries. And right now I'm talking about America, right? Because I'm talking about DHS fusion. But it's going to open up our country in these states where there's a lot more chaos to target more innocent people. They'll probably be targeting a lot of people who rioted probably a lot of people who are doing crime. They'll be targeting them with remote neural manipulation, targeting them with directed energy weapons, but it's going to open up a lot more innocent people. So when I say like it's weird to be a targeted individual and see what's going on, this is going to be happening to more people. This is going to be happening to a lot more people. That's what all the chaos is about. It's about getting more surveillance on people, getting more federal agencies involved in community policing, getting more neighbors involved in like surveilling and harassing other neighbors and scared of each other and everything like that. Not good. It's not good, right? It's not a good thing, but to actually reveal what's happening so that when, and I hate being selfish like this, but as a target individual, when we tell people like I'm being surveilled in my home, like I'm being remote neural monitored, being remote neural manipulated, like I'm being harassed by community policing and DHS fusion centers, people are like, oh, that sounds crazy. When it happens to more and more people and it's just the norm, which is a nightmare, right? It gets us closer to all of this being revealed, of this being commonplace. So not necessarily good, not a good thing at all, not a good thing at all, but definitely changing our situation, right? So I'm keeping a lookout for these things, and you don't see a lot about it in the mainstream media. You see a lot of left-right paradigm, Black Lives Matter, and then people are saying no, police are good, and you see all that playing out in the mainstream media, but you don't see a lot of these federal agencies going up the center and doing these huge global agendas to actually target more people, to make things a lot worse. So people who don't like police, like I don't like policemen that gang stalk. I think it's horrible, but to just be like, okay, we can get the police out of here and everything's going to be better and people are going to be more free. It's actually the opposite. Local law enforcement is actually like this barrier. It's a barrier, and even though they gang stalk us, that barrier goes and things are going to get worse because the law is going to be in normal citizens' hands, right? We've seen what happens, right? We get noise campaigns, harassment, dangerous situations. Then you get federal agencies who are getting like private businesses to help surveil, and so there's going to be more people who aren't trained who are attacking people, and then it's going to leave this opening to actually experiment, target on more people's brains and bodies. And to some people, like I think everybody on my channel, you kind of know what's up. And to some people, if you're not a targeted individual, you're probably like, that sounds crazy, targeting people's brains, using the defunding of the police and everything. But it's true. It's like true, and it's a complicated mess. That's how the pyramidal structure trying to grab global power likes it, because they can create a lot of chaos, a lot of people getting hurt, a lot of people suffering, all these artificial things popping off, and then in that chaos and confusion, when people are paying attention to the left-right paradigm, they can just go up the center and they can keep building this complete control network. And it's not only control network, seeing what everybody's doing, it's not even just seeing what's in everybody's brains. Like, I know that sounds, to people who watch my channel, it doesn't sound crazy. It's not just looking at more people's thoughts. It's not just that. Manipulating people, torturing them, collecting data off their deaths, off their 24-hour-a-day torture. Let's watch this and we'll talk about it a little bit more. But this is the Department of Homeland Security secretary, and he's talking on Fox News about he wants more governors of these states where there's increased crime because of the defunding of the police. He wants more of these governors to ask for federal aid, right? They have to do certain things, like there is a certain, not a lot, right? But there's autonomy at a local level. There's still autonomy left. Hard to believe as targeted individuals. So many things have been federalized and globalized, but they don't, they're not happy with that. DHS fusion centers, federal organizations, they want everything, right? They want complete control. and they want these local governors to give off like the last vestiges of people, like government making decisions for their own states. And that's what this is. This whole, all this stuff, all this chaos and destruction and riots. The leaders of BLM, the leaders of Antifa, people on the right side, they're just doing their thing, right? They're following their protocols, and they don't know about a higher plan, an evil higher plan. But then these people higher up use both of those sides to go up the center with these huge global agendas and federal agendas. It means, bottom line, it means more targeted individuals. Everything that's going on now, and what DHS fusion centers, and like, let's watch this. Let's watch this. I'll show you guys this.
I'm a little dismayed that
Let me read this real quick, guys. So acting Department of Acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf says other states should follow Georgia's lead on the America's newsroom. So Georgia, the Georgia governor, has asked for more federal aid in civil law enforcement. So basically given more power to DHS fusion centers and federal, like FBI programs like InfraGard, and then civil policing, which is like people without training, like them just recruiting people in communities to do surveillance and spying on other citizens, right? And targeted individuals, like we're innocent people, or like I'm innocent. A large majority of targeted individuals have committed no crimes. Some targeted individuals have committed crimes, but it's like they don't deserve this. You know what I'm saying, right? But we're all basically innocent. We're innocent. We don't deserve to be murdered. But it's going to create more of that. It's going to create more of that. Some people who probably have, like in the future, people who have participated in chaotic, like crime in the streets, they will be surveilled. They will probably be remote neural monitored and things like that. But it's also going to open it up to just cast this wide net, right? And then when that wide net is cast out at a certain level from DHS fusion centers, InfraGard, community policing, sheriff's department, and stuff like that, local law enforcement participating in it, of course, then it gives contractors in certain agencies an excuse, once the surveillance is laid down, to actually then experiment on people, torture them, do more, go deeper into destroying their lives. So that's what's happening. I mean, that's what's happening in America. So there's just so many different angles going on in so many different countries. I've been seeing what's going on in Australia, and it's horrific. But I'm just talking about like the level of the increased crime and riots and everything, and then defunding the police, and some police not even coming into work. The DHS Fusion Center, these federal agencies, are going to use that. They're going to follow certain protocols where higher up, they've orchestrated all of this. They've orchestrated all of this to do more experimentation on more people, to surveil more people in their homes and things like that. Let's watch this real quick, guys.
I didn't receive one question on the deaths that we got in this country this weekend. I didn't receive one question about New York City shootings doubling for the third straight week, and over the last 7 days, shootings skyrocket by 142%. Not one question.
That was Kayleigh McEnany there, the White House press secretary, scolding reporters at yesterday's briefing for failing to ask a single question about the gun violence happening across the nation over the holiday weekend. At least 6 children were killed. President Trump is now offering to step in and provide federal assistance if needed. Joining us now, Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. Mr. Secretary, good morning, and thanks for being here this morning. So in what way can and would the president be willing to step in and offer that?
This guy most definitely knows about your gang stalking. Like if you're a targeted individual and you're getting stalked by local companies, fire trucks, local law enforcement, sheriff's department, even immigration services, just fusion centers, right, and InfraGard, and citizens doing this stuff. I don't know how much he knows about remote neural monitoring and what's the experimentation that's also going on to targeted individuals. But this guy knows. This guy, he knows everything and directs these community policing, what they would call like surveilling a person of interest or whatever. He knows about that layer. He knows that innocent Americans, right, this parallel construction is set up. I don't know how much he would know about like the actual torture and stuff like that. I think a lot of people in I bet you he does, because I think a lot of people higher up in DHS fusion centers do know about it. Like the lower down people carrying out some of it, I don't think they know so much about the remote neural monitoring, remote neural manipulation. They just receive orders to stalk, to harass, to do certain street theater and things like that, to walk out at the same time, to, you know, and I think in their heads, I don't know, there's a lot of reasons that I think gang stalkers think that they're doing what they're doing. They think that they're doing, yeah, I said that right. But I think one of them is like, it seems like the people in my area that gang stalk me, they're like, we're going to try and get him out of this area because he's a troublemaker, and they don't even know me. They don't even know me, and I just like do my own thing in my home. Well, I'm being tortured all the time, so I'm like being isolated. But they don't, they're like, we're going to get this, we're going to let them know that they're being watched, right? So they don't do anything dangerous, and we're going to try and get them out of our area. I think that's what a lot of gang stalkers have in their head. They're idiots, they have no idea, and they're just following orders. While it's like, I'll just take my situation, but I'm sure a lot of targeted individuals' situation is similar. I'm an innocent person, I'm being tortured to death for like decades, voice to skull, remote neural manipulation, external hits with microwaves to the body, integrated directed energy weapon systems. They're just like, oh, this is a person that maybe did something wrong or may do something wrong, right? It may not even be that they think that you did something wrong, but that you're like capable of doing something wrong. And this, like what's going on in our country is going to create more of that and more citizens really scared. You know, a lot of citizens are buying guns to protect themselves. Well, how many citizens are going to be like, well, I need to join up with DHS fusion centers to watch my community, right? Let's get rid of police, right? The local law enforcement, that if they were not gang stalking and just doing their job, there's a lot less danger in that, and it's more orderly and they're trained. Going to a hole, hurting so many innocent people and leaving this opening, a purposeful opening for contractors, people who are doing research on people, experimenting on them, surveilling them in their homes, surveilling their actions and everything. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've ever committed a crime. So.
Federal help.
Well, I think it's important to note this really starts with the local police, local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and then the federal law enforcement is there as a third level backup, if you will. What we've seen is we need to make sure that the state and the local officials are asking for that help, that they're doing all they can to support law enforcement.
Gotta make sure that they're asking.
Wait. With Governor Kemp in Georgia is called
I can't pause it. So they got to make sure that they're asking for this help, because there's certain barriers, right? There's certain things that a governor has to do for the state. Like there's a huge level of DHS fusion center activity, DHS activity in states, but there's certain things they have to sign over to the federal government. And when their city is burning and the police like aren't coming into work and this crime has skyrocketed, then they're in a crunch time, right? And they need more help from these agencies, right? And then these agencies come in and grab power. I think that's an obvious thing to everybody, even people who are not targeted, that like, you know, these huge false flags go on, right? And false flags are now global. They're not just incidents where they can create global change. They're global false flags affecting everybody in every country. I forgot my point on that. My attackers just erased what I was going to say. But basically, the governors and local government have to sign away certain things to give federal agencies more power to enact that layer of surveillance, that layer of civil policing. I think he says it right here.
Parts parts of Atlanta. And so we need others to step up and take that action as well. And then the president's been very clear. We can provide civil law enforcement support if a governor requests it.
Civil law enforcement support. So what does that mean? Like, what does that mean? What comes to mind for me is gang stalkers, is like companies in the area, certain private companies in the area participating in surveilling people of interest and neighbors surveilling people of interest. But like as an innocent targeted individual being experimented on and then at the mercy of like these civil policing programs where I didn't do anything, it's not going to be just criminals who get surveilled. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll surveil a couple of criminals and stuff like that. But then they're gonna have so much power to just for anybody that they want to wipe out, right? Anybody whose life that they want to isolate and destroy, right? And it works in these layers where it's like DHS fusion centers and InfraGard and the community policing structure destroy people's lives on a certain level and surveil them, even people who didn't do anything. But at this other layer, this surveillance layer is needed for remote neural monitoring, remote neural manipulation, and things like that. And so that's what it's going to be in all these. This is purposeful. This is very purposeful. What's going on. Nobody get it twisted. I don't think anybody who watches my channel does, but this is very, very purposeful. And I just like if anybody thinks, and I don't know if anybody thinks, well, abolishing the police is good, right? A lot of them are jerks and they're gang stalkers and they just follow orders, but they are a barrier to things getting way worse. To people who are not trained, but also to more advanced technologies being brought in, right? Well, we don't have enough police to go out and police the community. We're going to need to rely on more funding for, surveillance technologies, through-the-wall radar, certain applications that DHS Fusion Center uses to communicate. Oh, and remote neural monitoring, right? I mean, we're going to need to monitor people's brains. Of course, they're not going to tell the public that yet. I think that's coming soon, though. I think that I saw something on, and I'll make a video about it, but I saw something on Never Lose Truth's channel where she was talking about how they're saying that the CV virus creates neurological issues. And so I don't know about it on this pandemic, but maybe the next pandemic or so, I don't know when, but it's like we've got to actually, we're going to have to use technology to monitor people's brains for this kind of change, and we can catch the virus early. We can see right when they get it, right? I'm betting on that one. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be like during the seed, but they're going to plant the seeds for that. They're going to plant the seeds of like neurological issues and stuff like that. So it's really bad. Everything's really bad right now. But I just see for targeted individuals in our situation, more people. It's going to happen to more people. That's what they're preparing for. They're preparing, and I'm kind of looking at things. There's tons of angles of asymmetrical warfare and destroying our countries. But I'm looking at things and I'm like, what can I kind of add? What kind of viewpoint? Because I can pretty much see a bigger picture. Like I've always been pretty good at seeing this bigger picture of what's to come. I think a lot of us are. And this is definitely very, very important. This is definitely very, very important. And it's not defunding the police is an obvious bad thing because crime is going to go up a millionfold, right? But then what are they going to use that chaos to do? And it's not going to be to like, hey, let's wait on second thought. I mean, I think some people are like, on second thought, we do need police. But the things that you won't see in mainstream media are DHS Fusion Center getting their claws in the local governors signing off what is left of states' autonomy. When that is gone, I mean, the kind of horrific and targeted individuals, we experience this every day. That kind of policing, I think they use PC words like that in DHS fusion centers, and even some of these contractors, they consider it like extrajudicial policing or something like that, and it's just brutal murder and rape, and raping your mind, and people like agents and things, surveillance role players, where you don't even know if your neighbor is like signed up with some agency trying to pretend to be your friend or something like that. Like, that is horrific, way more satanic, right? Way more satanic than having local law enforcement have normal powers. I'm not talking about gang stalking powers, right? This gets complicated. I do hate policemen for participating in gang stalking, but my thing is like, and like, what can I do, right? What can we do to not make it worse? But that's what's happening now. It's like, oh, there are problems, let's make it a million times worse. That's what's happening now with everything, with like everything, with BLM and Antifa. And like, there's some police brutality and things that need to be worked out with a ton of different stuff. But what's happening now is, hey, we got a problem there, and we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to fix it, but we're going to make things a million times worse, create a bunch of chaos. And then the organizations with a lot of power that are doing this on purpose, or that are working for the higher ups, they're going to swoop in, and they're going to use that chaos. I think that's obvious to pretty much everyone who knows kind of how these things work. But as targeted individuals, I mean, we have a little bit more insight to what happens when you put policing or spy power into the hands of idiot citizens that live in communities, and then you're there, and it's mixed with this advanced technology that is not, that they're like, oh, well, we're going to surveil people with it, blah blah blah, but it's so non-transparent and hidden that they're like, well, we're going to torture people to death and collect data, right? Those contractors and agencies jump in. Some people lower down are like, well, we're using advanced technology and citizen policing and everything like that just to surveil and to stop crime. But at a higher level, they're like, yeah, we're using all the stuff y'all are doing to go ahead and experiment on people, experiment on their brains, and learn how to control people better, right? There's this layering of the system, and people in different parts of the pyramid have different different knowledge about what they're doing. That's a very important point. This guy, the DHS secretary, he has a different knowledge of what's happening and what he's trying to accomplish than somebody at the next layer up from him, and the next layer up from them has a different knowledge of what they're trying to accomplish, all the way up to the capstone of this satanic pyramid. Bill Binney talks about that a lot. How it's set up like NSA and a lot of these contractors and gang stalking stuff. It's set up where people doing certain jobs have a certain level of what they think they're accomplishing, right? And that's like necessary to do completely global evil things, because you've got some people who are like ex-military who may want to do something good or something like that. They think that they're accomplishing something good, but they're playing into like severe evil. And then there's just a lot of pieces of poo that gang stalk and do this. They know they're doing
some other options as well, but the law is pretty clear. That request needs to be made by the governor to the administration, and the president's been very clear. We will step in and we will support.
Has the president decided at what point he would step in if he doesn't see similar action that Governor Kemp took in Georgia, say in New York, Chicago? If you don't see further action, at what point is the president willing to step in?
Again, these are ongoing conversations that we're having with the White House, with the Department of Justice and others, taking a look at different localities, different cities that are experiencing this violence. And some of this violence is manifesting itself in different ways. We see what happened in Atlanta and Chicago, and then what we see in Portland and Seattle are much more organized, criminal, violent mob type of violence. So you have to really come at that a different way.
So
we're taking a look at all of our
we think of this, right?
We
think of problem, reaction, solution, and we think of the problem now. The problem now is like the chaos and more crime, and then the reaction of the citizens that have children and want to keep their community safe, please come in. The police cannot do this. The police are being defunded. This is crazy, especially in democratic states. Please bring in more federal control, more community policing. I'll sign up to DHS fusion centers, right? I'm not saying me, but I'm saying some of these people that are crying out for a solution, right? And then the solution comes in and it starts the whole cycle again of creating problem, reaction, solution to gain more control and more of what globally what the top of the pyramid wants to get done. It's we know what this is. It's creating these problems, and it's pretty sophisticated how different organizations are played off of each other to create these problems, and then they just come through up the middle to do things that the top of the pyramid wants to accomplish. Problem, reaction, solution.
Requesting what we're asking for governors, that if the your capacity is no longer enough to defend your cities, to restore that law and order, request help from the federal government. We will be there.
Got it. So I want to play this sound. This is Congressman Doug Collins.
They'll be there,
on Fox News
and they'll help out a little bit with probably some people doing crime. But then once they're there and the local governments have signed away any kind of autonomy that was left, they'll stay. And then it'll be well, we're going after criminals who are part of the riots or involved in shootings or anything like this. We're going to use community policing on them, but they're already targeting, surveilling so many innocent citizens, and they'll just cast a wide net. And they'll keep reeling in more targeted individuals because they're growing in power, in funding, and everything like that. So I just wanted to show you all this. Let's see, I pulled up some articles from the Department of Homeland Security about the Federal Protective Service statement on the Portland civil unrest. So they had to bring in Department of Homeland Security support for Portland. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing in all of these states where it's defund the police, and they're having problems from the rioters and protesters, and then just regular crime in communities is skyrocketing. And they're hey, because the police are kind of getting powerless, they're being defunded. Funds are not going away though, and they're not being used for certain programs that people on the left want. It's being rerouted to something way more vicious and way more evil. So what I see that is lacking, and I'm not saying for you guys watching this video, what I see that everybody's lacking on almost a world scale, but I'm just thinking about America, is foresight of looking at a situation, because people are we need to defund the police. There's there's police abuse and everything like that. There's some problems, so just abolish it, blah blah. And leaders at the top know that it's to destroy America, but some of the people who are involved in these organizations that actually are well, if we get rid of the police, it's going to get rid of corruption, and citizens will have more freedoms. They're not thinking it through on who's going to grab power, on where the funds are going to be rediverted to, So officers from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Service detained 8 people following the 37th consecutive night of violence and civil unrest in downtown Portland. Those detained are pending prosecutorial decision by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Oregon, and face possible charges ranging from damage to government property and assault on a law enforcement officer to interfering with a law enforcement officer. These charges can carry maximum fines of up to $5,000 and possible jail time of up to 20 years in prison, depending on the severity of the crime. Attacks on federal officers at the Mark O. Hatfield U.S. Courthouse involved the use of strobe lights, laser lights, commercial-grade fireworks, bricks, rocks, bottles, and paint-filled balloons. One suspect arrested was armed with machetes and was carrying a metal pipe with end caps and a fuse. Officers from the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Service, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Now I have a U.S. Customs and Border Protection like right across from my apartment building, and I will be vehicularly stalked by some of those vehicles because they are enmeshed, right? All these different policing organizations are meshed together with DHS fusion centers, but also private-owned businesses, and then citizens in your community will sign up. That people will tell them about it and stuff like that, and so it will spread around like that. And from the Department of Justice's U.S. Marshals Service, continue to defend federal property from criminal acts of violence and vandalism. And this was from a while back. This was from a while back from the New York Times. Trump deploys the full might of federal law enforcement to crush protests. Nearly a dozen federal agencies, even with the Transportation Security Administration, were sent to Washington, and other Transportation Security Administration would be involved with DHS fusion centers. They get everybody. They get all of these different, like the firemen, EMS workers, anybody who's driving all over the city to do surveillance on people of interest. But then there's this layer that a lot of them don't know about, which is torturing the citizens and doing it to innocent people and trying to blame them for stuff, trying to false flag them, microwaving them, remote neural manipulating them, trying to get them to act out against community members so that they can be blamed for something, right? And then there's the layer up from that, right? You see how this works in layers? The layer up from that is like experimenting on the brain and seeing what they can get the human being to do and collecting that data, right? So it's these different layers of manipulation in a lot of innocent people's lives, in millions of innocent people's lives. Even the Transportation Security Administration were sent to Washington and other cities after the president vowed to dominate protesters. Washington, President Trump's vow to dominate demonstrators protesting police brutality has mobilized the full might of federal law enforcement, from border agencies and the Drug Enforcement Administration to FBI hostage rescue teams working alongside local law enforcement, the military police, and the National Guard. DHS and its partners will not allow anarchists. DHS and its partners. It's the Department of Homeland Security. They have fusion centers. When it says its partners, that means private businesses, citizens, firemen, EMS workers, and everything like this. But the problem is, and I think they do catch criminals, right? They do surveil and catch criminals. The problem is they cast a wider net, and then there's nefarious agendas and a layer above them to actually experiment on and torture a lot of the innocent individuals. A lot of people who have committed crimes and stuff like that. Some of them that have served their time and things like that. It gets complicated with who and why is targeted, right? But some people who haven't done anything, get thrown in there because it's a federal organization. They need funding. They've got to have an excuse. They will false flag people for the other layer to get experimentation done and torture done, and to get more funding to the gang stalking programs, right? Where the innocent people, or just the people who are targeted, call it gang stalking. But I think that DHS fusion centers and InfraGard would call it like surveillance role playing, and COINTELPRO and blah blah blah. All those PC terms that don't really justify the type of rape and murder to innocent people that they're doing. DHS and its partners will not allow anarchists, disruptors, and opportunists to exploit the ongoing civil unrest to loot and destroy our communities, said Chad Wolf. That's the guy who was talking on Fox, the acting Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. While the department respects every American's right to protest peacefully, violence and civil unrest will not be tolerated. From where he's sitting, he might just be going through the protocols. He may not be aware, and I've said that, right? The agenda at a higher up layer is like using DHS and using, BLM, and using, the defunding the police. It's like a really complicated, chaotic mess where these different levers are pulled in the system, but people at higher up layers do it in an organized fashion. They know exactly, they have algorithms of what's going to happen to move along, to hooking more people's brains into surveillance and torturing them while they do it, and then feeding us to organizations like DHS fusion centers, InfraGard, things like that. Oh, my ear is all blistered. The high-pitched ringing in my ear is really bad. Okay. Okay, DHS and its partners will not allow anarchists, disruptors, and opportunists to exploit the ongoing civil unrest to loot and destroy our communities. As said Chad Wolf, the acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. While the department respects every American's right to protest peacefully, violence and civil unrest will not be tolerated. That's interesting because they create so much violence by false flagging innocent citizens, and them and InfraGard and contractors higher up actually remote neural manipulating and torturing innocent citizens, and then they get desperate and do violent acts. So it's really this, like, they do in their net catch some real criminals. And I'm not talking about targeted individuals like us on this channel. I'm saying, like, some of the people who are doing crime and stuff with the surveillance, they probably get a criminal every once in a while, right? And they will here. They will in this upcoming situation. But then with the other hand, they're targeting and experimenting and torturing innocent citizens and trying to make some of them act out. And then what's the public going to think? Oh, well, y'all caught a guilty person, right? What does everybody in my community think about me? Oh, well, this guy must have done something. I don't know exactly what they were told, but, like, this guy must have done something. They've either been told that I've done something, or like, oh, he's one of them mass shooters, or even something worse. And there's stuff worse that can be said about you, right? But while the department respects okay, I already read that. We will control the situation and protect the American people and the homeland at any cost. Destroy it at the same time. The left hand destroys, the right hand rebuilds, and they use this chaos, order out of chaos, to move it on up the field to do the we're going to destroy a bunch of people's lives and false flag them, but then we're going to come in and do this, and then they move up the field to just unending tyranny and unending control and unending isolation of people and unending experimentation and all those things, using destroy, create, manipulation, right? More destruction than creation. I see, because I'm a targeted individual. Like, I'm brutally tortured all the time for so long that, like, my body can't even take it, right? You guys too, probably all of you guys who watch my video. In all, nearly a dozen federal agencies, and when I say, like, DHS fusion centers, InfraGard, community policing programs, the sheriff's, there's other organizations. There's other organizations involved in just the gang stalking aspect, right? All these different levers at play. And that's why it's so hard as somebody experiencing this, being tortured, experimented on, remote neural manipulated, remote neural monitored, hit with external microwave beams, gang stalked, isolated, lied about, frickin' COINTELPRO surveillance role players, like, screwing with your life and stuff like that. It's very hard to just explain it like, well, it's just this one organization. All these different organizations working different levers, where the higher up layers are working all those levers. We've been conditioned in our society that if something's not simple one-to-one, then it's a conspiracy theory. And so when you have agencies and global false flags, they make them all these different levers, right? complicated levers working together. And then at the same time, for so many years, they've conditioned people to be like, if it's not a one-to-one relationship of this happens, then this happens. This organization does this. If it's not simple, then it's a conspiracy theory. And everything they do now that they don't want the public to know about, that they don't want the public to know about, the manipulation, the murder, the rape, the lying, the more tyranny coming down the pike, right? They make it very complicated levers so that people are like, oh, well, you're explaining something to me that sounds like a conspiracy theory. It's so artificially manipulated what they had put into people's heads about how things work, so that whenever they do something to screw over mankind, right, and it has a lot of different working levers, conspiracy theory. I mean, just incredible. And not incredible in a good way. In all, nearly a dozen federal agencies and components have joined in Mr. Trump's effort to quell protests incited by the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and ostensibly to put an end to rioting and looting, and determine whether anarchists and other extremist groups had infiltrated the protests. Oh, I guarantee you, like, there are extremist groups in there, right, that have infiltrated. There's extremist groups and communities committing crimes, but then, like, the DHS fusion centers are everywhere. Infragar is everywhere. Like citizens doing spy work is everywhere. So I guarantee you, like, in gangs that are doing violence, they have people put in there. In the protests, in BLM, they have agents infiltrating it. And then on the other side, like, BLM probably has agents that are infiltrating certain groups on the right. I guarantee it's a like, nobody can trust anybody. That's worse than any kind of, like, accidental abuse or a police doing something wrong, or the problems that we had to take care of with racism and everything like that. What is created is a million times worse for all of humanity. It's not bad. I guess it's not bad for people who know about the deceit and they're like, go onto the spy side or the surveillance role player side or the gang stalker, the cyber stalker side, or the remote neural manipulator, cyber thug group, hive mind group, right? Because they have a bird's eye view of who's who, right? They know when it's another person working for an organization, but you'd have to be psychotic to be okay with innocent people not knowing who they can trust and being murdered at the same time. And that's what everything's going into that, with other layers of on-the-top chaos and lies, like the CB pandemic, and then elevating crime and elevating riots and things like that. But local officials say the federal response has gone beyond acceptable, verging on overkill. The mayor of the District of Columbia called it shameful. Virginia County pulled its officers out of Washington rather than deploy alongside federal agents. The governor of Illinois said the federal presence had actually undercut efforts to restore law and order, while Texas said it needed no help from the U.S. military. And my thing is that, like, with increased, we should not defund the police. Like, as a targeted individual who's gang stalked by police, they still are the last layer, because if they're defunded, things get worse, and then somebody else with a worse agenda steps in. That's the whole point. That's the point that I was trying to make. I don't know if I said this, but it's like, we can't make things worse, at the very least. As a targeted individual, that's what I've been trying to do the whole time. It's like, we're not really we're moving along. Things are coming along. Like, we're getting awareness out. The UN has declared this, right? But my one thing is, like, we just don't want to make things worse. We might move along slowly, but it's better than a fast degradation to anything worse, and that's what we're seeing in all of our countries. Hopefully it'll just bring more awareness about it. Maybe it'll be out in the open more. and they won't be able to do the more hardcore stuff with everybody knowing about the community policing and everything like that. Gang stalking. I'm going to call it gang stalking. Is an innocent American who's also being experimented and tortured, experimented on and tortured and raped, like remotely. V2K going right now. What is the V2K saying? The woman goes, "Help him." It's Chatterbox, right? And the guy goes, "Get out of here." And the woman goes, "This is sad. He's trying to help people." It's all the time. Chatterbox. Chatterbox to the brain. Remote neural monitoring, remote neural manipulation, and then directed energy neuroweapons to the brain. Microwave hearing that's either a field around the head or directed energy up to the brain and the inner ear. All the time. I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you guys are hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. And we're getting somewhere with the United Nations. We're getting somewhere with everybody understanding how crazy the world is, because it's getting crazier. I don't know. Like, I say those things and it's not good. I don't know. I hear some truthers say it's like, I try and like, I don't want to give anybody false hope, but like in my experiences, it's like the more faith that you have, high resonance that you have, you can do good even though things are really bad. It does take trust in God. Like, I think that most of the evil done right now that we're seeing in the world, from normal people all the way up to the top of the pyramid, it's godless people. It's people who are like, there's nothing and I am God, right? That's what all of our problems stem from. Like, if everybody believed in a creator who, in a divine destiny, or don't hurt other lives because God made those lives. They're special, right? Every life is special. All life on earth is special, right? If we all had that mentality and that spiritual connection, you wouldn't see so much manipulation. You wouldn't see so much destruction. The people at the top of the pyramid who are trying to carry out global domination in global genocide, let's just say it, right? Like, let's just say it. I know that some people don't want to believe that it's happening. They do not believe in God. They believe they are God. See, so it's like, I don't blame God for this. He gives us such a gift. Life is such a gift. That it's like all the evil that I see in the world is from people who think they are God, right? If we had every human being on the world who was like, I believe in a creator, and I believe that creator created all life, and we must respect all life. Even if you eat an animal for sustenance, you respect it, you do it in a respectful manner, which we don't. I don't. But it would change the world, right? So I feel like if that's the situation, if that's how it is, then we've got to strive to be like that, to have any chance of like changing anything, doing anything good, fighting till the end, See a lot of truthers out there that are just so good, such good people, such great people. I was watching Jeff Censored last night. Like, he looks into all this stuff and it's driving him nuts, drives me nuts. Like, looking into everything that's happening, and he's like such a good guy. He's a compassionate guy, intelligent guy, just looking at this stuff all the time. It breaks my heart. Like, good people who are like fighting, and they have to talk about this. We have to make people aware about it, and it just breaks my heart, man. I know exactly how they feel trying to get this information out. Alright guys, I love y'all. I just wanted to do that short video. I just want to say, like, that's what's going to happen. Like, DHS is calling on governors to ask for federal aid. They're gonna be signing things and enacting things that then set things into motion, and they stay that way, right? And the bottom line is that all this chaos, and then more help from federal agencies, more help. We need more technology. We need more fusion in the fusion centers, right? We need InfraGard. We need to fund InfraGard. And like these things, exactly what it's going to do, they're not going to tell citizens about. they're only going to tell, and I wouldn't call them citizens who sign up with DHS fusion centers, who sign up with InterGuard, call them terrorists, because everything's inverted, right? Innocent, good citizens are being terrorized, and then citizens who play ball, who are like, hey, I'll work with evil, I'll go ahead and stalk these innocent people, they're terrorists now. But they get the money, and they get the opportunity, right? All right, guys, I love y'all. Just want to do that short one. I'll be doing some live streams. I'm not stopping doing live streams, but I wanted to do a couple of short videos and get my mind organized, get spiritually centered, and I'm still going to be doing live streams and stuff like that. Just take my time. It's a lot of, it's heavy. All this stuff is heavy. I know we all know it. And then when you're targeted, it's just like a million times heavier because they're playing with your brain, right? They're manipulating your brain. It's, for me, yeah. Well, I won't go into all that right now. Let's end it with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus Christ. Dear Lord, please open everyone's eyes in the world to what's going on. Please help us to make good changes somehow. Give us miracles. But just all in all, give us strength. Give us happiness. Give us joy. Even when we're fighting intense evil and these awful changes are happening to our world, give us a sense of humor about it. Just give us strength and miracles to get through this stuff and to help each other. Give us spiritual rejuvenation. Just give everyone, every good person in the world, just give them a connection. Just connect to them and give them strength. Just give them strength. Just please, if it's in your will, just help us to fix these things. Help our aim to be true on making things better for good human beings. And please just, if you could make all of the evil people, sociopathic and psychopathic, just disappear, like turn into dust, that'd be cool too. All right, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, in the name of Jesus Christ, guys. I love y'all, and I'll definitely see y'all in the next one. Everybody take care and be strong.